All right, we should be live on here. Give me 1 second. Give me 1 second to tweet this out really quick. If you're in here, I'll talk to you in 1 second. All right. Come on. I'm gonna have to cut this up if you're listening on the podcast. Sorry, there's 45 seconds of all right. Let a couple people scary in here. If you're in here, welcome. Another episode of Luke and I on the Phillies here. Live on Twitter. If you're listening on Spotify and Apple, this is all these will be on the Pick Swap Media YouTube along. They'll be logged on my Twitter, obviously, so you can go back and watch if you are a visual podcast watcher. But if you're here on Apple, Spotify, welcome. Newest episode, January 21st, 2026, Luke and I on the Phillies. We got a lot to talk about. Some comments over the last couple days from Dave Dombrowski, Rob Thomson. Some interesting stuff comes out on social media. So we're going to talk about it all. But if you are here, do me a huge favor, hit that retweet button. Let's get as many people in here as we can to hang out. Last time we pulled like 2,400 people. Ton of fun last time, ton of questions. I want to do all those, question style again today. We're going to do these once a week, starting last week. So any comments, questions, thoughts on the run it back thing from Thomson, thoughts on the clips that have come out with JT Real Muto and Dave Dombrowski, get it all down in the comments. But this is Luke and I on the Phillies here. Once again, January 21st, we are a little under a month away from first day of pitchers and catchers. I kind of wanted to start today off with like the day yesterday. So it started off for me. There was an availability in the morning with Dombrowski, Preston Mattingly, Rob Thomson, and JT Real Muto. And JT spoke, and I will say it felt a little odd at times. It felt like JT was very vocal yesterday about, the Phillies process and how they went about everything. Obviously everything yesterday comes out about Dombrowski with the comments about Bichette and how they were really close to a deal. But it was just, I don't know how to describe it. It was just something felt off. And JT, basically said yesterday, and I mean, I think we all kind of knew this, that there was a situation where it got hairy for JT and his camp. I think once we'll get there. We will talk about the new Zach Bryan album soon because it's great. I didn't love it at first, but then once I gave it like the 9th listen, definitely growing on me. So we'll get there soon. But something just felt off yesterday on the Zoom. JT said multiple times, he said something along the lines of how his camp, he and his camp and his family sort of almost value himself, how they feel more than the Phillies did, which, might have come off a little weirder in the moment. But yeah, it just kind of felt off. Dombrowski, and listen, if you're in here, this is going to work. This is where I'm really going to need the thoughts here, because we all knew the quote was coming. But Dave Dombrowski hit, the media members on Zoom yesterday with, well, we like the club. And I think that was probably the lock of the century yesterday to happen. But I so the last pod, I said I had a hard time getting mad at Dombrowski for the Bichette thing because they put the offer on the table for Bichette. Bichette, it's what Bichette asked for, and then Bichette turns and goes to the Mets for $42 million a year. And we're going to get into that Bichette press conference today because that is the most opting out after 1 year to get a new multi-year deal next year. It is the most. Bo Bichette is a 1 year Met and then probably another contract. There is no way, based off of his facial expression today, that he is opting back into that deal. But it was. So we talked last time about it, and I have a hard time getting mad at Dave Dombrowski for losing out on Bichette. Dombrowski put the offer out on the table that Bichette and his camp wanted. Bichette went to the Mets for more AAV. It's pretty hard to turn down $42 million a year for any player, realistically. But, I almost feel like they're trying to – I don't know if trying to is the right word, but it almost feels like they don't know – front office doesn't know maybe the type of territory that they're inching towards. Everyone loves the, we like our team comments. But, after a while, they start to get pretty exhausting. And, after, coming up short 4 years in a row, eventually people just aren't going to care. And unfortunately right now, I think that's, kind of the waters they're treading in right now. And listen, I did tweet this morning, and it was definitely a popular one today, I would say, as far as Phillies world. I said this morning that I completely understand the offseason hasn't gone how most people want it, especially over the last week or so. But it feels like the Phillies negativity has gone a little too far. And I still agree with that. There is absolutely reason to be down. I think you should be after this offseason. But with that, I think some of the takes I've seen about the season are a little overboard. Like, they're not going to win 60 games. They're not going to come in fourth in the NL East. It's just not going to happen. They're still a good baseball team. But I understand why people are upset. And I understand why people are frustrated. And I understand why people are feeling almost like gaslit into believing that something's going to change. Listen, Alec Boehm is who he is. I think we've probably seen the best of Boehm. Hey, going into a contract year, maybe he turns it up. I think Alec Boehm's all-star season is probably, the better of Boehm. But some of the issues is just construction, right? And year after year, the Phillies go into the season with no cleanup hitter, right? If Alec Boehm hits seventh in a lineup where you had depth in the middle and can move him back, I don't think people would be as anti-Boehm as if he hits seventh in the lineup. If JT hits eighth, like, old-time catchers used to, I don't think people would be as mad about bringing JT back if they had the middle. And it's the middle of the lineup for them for years that has killed them. And listen, I understand you can go talk about the Marshes and the Rojas's and the Stotts in the 7, 8, 9 from years past. But my forever take about this Phillies core is that the middle of their lineup hasn't been good enough. 1-3 is great. Trey, Schwarber, Harper, boom. But over the years, it's been a mix of Castellanos and Boehm and JT and Kepler and that group of guys. The middle is not good enough. And that's where all of the protection conversations come in. And, who's hitting behind Schwarber conversations come in. Because realistically, The top three guys in the Phillies lineup are really good. Bryson Stott is a completely fine baseball player to hit 8th in your lineup. Brandon Marsh can hit 7th in your lineup and be a platoon guy. It's okay. Brandon Marsh is not a bad baseball player. Where the Phillies have struggled for years is the 4, 5, and 6 spot in their lineup. And it's never gotten better. They've funneled through those 4 to 5 guys, hope one of them pops 30 home runs a year, and they just live with it. But it's just not, it's going to get to a point where it's going to continue to not work. And, that's where we were at. Bohm in a cleanup spot last year. Castellanos, they funneled through JT, Bohm, and Castellanos last year for a 4-hole cleanup spot. None of them have a good year. So, when you get to that point, you're basically just shooting yourselves in the foot. And listen, I like Adolis Garcia. I liked the signing. I think we'll be better than Castellanos was last year. But once again, going into a season in a perfect world of Adolis Garcia hitting 4th in your lineup after the season he had last year just isn't doing the top 3 guys in your lineup any justice. Philly Sports. If you guys have any questions, drop them all down in the replies. Any questions, comments, thoughts. We're going to talk about the Zach Bryan album eventually. Whatever's on your mind, let me know. We will talk about anything today, probably for the next 15, 20 minutes. Philly Sports says, fell to my knees and wallow when I heard that. I'm pretty sure you're talking about the Dave Dombrowski, we like our club comment. The man. They're probably going to win 88 to 90 games again, which is fine. But the pursuit of Bo alone was them admitting they're not good enough. And they're just sitting on their hands and saying we like our club. It's the lying to our faces that people have a problem with. And I that's what I said. And that's really what I said this morning. Like, I don't want people to take from that tweet that I think the Phillies are going to win 100 games and beat the Dodgers and win the World Series, because I still don't think the Phillies are good enough to compete with them. They're just not. Granted, nobody is realistically, but it's starting to make people go crazy. And I think that's why they're getting so mad, is continuing to watch Alec Bohm in the 4-hole. Listen, once again, and I know situations are different, because if they were to get Bichette, they would have had to trade Bohm. But if you get Bichette, everyone slides back. Everyone hits a little deeper. Alec Bohm ends up hitting 5th or 6th. Bryson Stott hits 8th. Like, your lineup just instantly looks better. And it all falls back to them not solidifying the middle of their lineup, the 4, the 5, and the 6. I want to pivot here a little bit. Once again, any more questions, drop them down in the replies. But I do want to kind of pivot here to the Rob Thomson thing from yesterday really quick, because, and it was funny because you could definitely tell Thomson was a little fired up about that. Sugar breakout year. Yeah. And we're going to get into the bullpen, because I am like very, very much talking myself into the bullpen. But yes, I do want to get to the bullpen in a few minutes, but I do want to say one thing about the Thomson quote from yesterday. And I'll read the quote really quick. This is when Rob was asked at our media availability yesterday if about the narrative of the Phillies running it back. He said, we got 3 new relievers, a new right fielder. Justin Crawford's going to have every chance to play, a rookie starting pitcher, and Otto Kemp, who wasn't here at the start of last year. That's 20 to 25% of the roster. If you think that's running it back, or whatever the saying is, I can't help you. So I'm not going to lie. What I did think was a little funny about that quote from Thomson yesterday is he kind of like pushed his chest forward a little bit, which I actually kind of thought was funny. But here's the thing. I don't know if Rob Thomson truly, like, when you say run it back, and if people out here are saying, like, fans are saying the Phillies are running it back, that means, the core, right? Nothing changing with the core. JT is still here. Bohm is still here. Marsh is still here. Like, those middle of the pack core guys. I think Rob Thomson more or less thinks of running it back as in legitimate how many players are different from last year. If you know what I mean in the difference there's a difference. It's not about, in Thomson's brain, I don't think he's thinking of this as the core guys. I think he's thinking of it as, oh, well, if we had 26 guys on the roster last year and 7 of them are new, then that's not running it back. I don't think I really don't think that was a shot at fans being mad that the core is still here, if that makes sense. I really do think it was just Thomson thinking that it's more of a numbers thing rather than a, what hasn't worked thing. Bellinger season. Unfortunately, not for the Phillies. Probably gonna have to change that profile picture, unfortunately. But all I'm gonna say is this: the bullpen got even better. This is the best bullpen in baseball. Don't know about that, but I'm very in on the bullpen. If Adolis goes back to his 2023 form, Harper steps up and has an elite year, and Stott also goes back to being a 280 hitter, does this make us excited, especially with the young talent? I mean, yeah, it would have to. If the bullpen was the best bullpen in baseball, Adolis goes back to 23, Harper has an elite year, Stott hits 280, and the young talent, I would be extremely disappointed in people if that didn't excite them. And I understand and here's my one comment on the wake me up in October crowd. I always have an issue with that in Philadelphia. There's a crowd now that it's just wake me up when the playoffs get here. And the Sixers, it's wake me up when the playoffs get here. And the Eagles, I guarantee you next year it'll be wake me up when the playoffs get here. But nobody in Philadelphia genuinely believes that. Nobody in Philadelphia does not care about the regular season. And whatever they tell you, they're lying to you. If Rob Thomson has a hair out of place on a Tuesday night in May, like the city goes up in flames. Like people care about regular season baseball. If Jordan Romano's head was wanted by people on a stick last year, but apparently it's wake me up when the playoffs get here. That's the one thing I just can't deal with. Because nobody that says wake me up when the playoffs get here out loud actually believes that. I do want to talk a little bit about this bullpen. Shout out to Phillies Tailgate. If any of you guys are in here, I think he retweeted it. So if any of you guys are in here from that, welcome. This is Luke and I on the Phillies. My name is Luke Arcaini. I write for Crossing Broad, down at a bunch of the games, and finally getting the podcast back. It was last season, just got a lot. It was insanely busy. Was doing some YouTube writing, so the pod got a little bit away, but we are bringing it back definitely once a week, potentially twice a week this coming season. But I do want to talk about this bullpen. Because I'm very in on the bullpen. Obviously Duran, the closer, and I thought it was cool. So Tanner Banks, who is going to have a lot bigger of a role this year for the Phillies after they obviously got rid of Matt Strahm. We spoke to him yesterday, and he was asked about going into a first full season with Yohan Duran and going into the first full season with a closer. And he really believes that this bullpen can do something special and be special. Guys that are still here. He talked a lot about Kerkering, and in a big bounce back situation. He actually called Kerkering a dog, based on, how he's been responding this offseason. But I do think I'm very in on this bullpen. Obviously Duran at the top. Banks and Jose Alvarado as your, big time lefties. Orion Kerkering, Brad Keller. That is your top five. I'm disgustingly in on Brad Keller. I think he has a chance to be an all-star this year. But then you get into these fringe guys, and I talked about this, I think, on the last pod. I'm very much enjoying the Phillies' approach to the bullpen. They're not throwing 1 year, $10 million contracts at 41-year-old relievers who haven't had a good season in 3 years. They're finding young, controllable pieces that have something to their game and just need a little fine tuning. Guys like Jonathan Bolin, I know he's 29 or 30, but that's a bit of a project guy. I think that can turn into something. Kyle Backus. I'm very in on Kyle Backus. Unfortunately, I think his arm slot just can always, anyone with that arm slot can always be good. As long as he gets a little uptick in the stuff, I think that's something that they'll obviously work on with him. Zach McCambley, very in on the Rule 5 pick. Chase Sugar breakout year. Like, they have some guys. And, Duran, Kirker, Keller, Banks, Alvarado. That's 5 right there. You need 3 more. Here's the thing. If they sign probably, no pun intended, like 6 or 7 like fringe bullpen guys this year that could have a role, if 3 of them hit for the amount of money they've spent on these guys combined, like it's a success. And if McCambley hits, it's a Rule 5. Excuse me. If McCambley hits, it's a Rule 5 for Backus. It's a cheap trade. Bolin, it's a cheap, you know what I mean? So, like, I like their approach that they're taking this year. It's very different to me than they've done in the past. And that sort of, I think has a way for people to get more excited about it because it's a different approach. Another question for Philly Sports. Once again, it's a long one. If you guys have any questions, drop them down in the chat here on YouTube or Twitter. My name is Luke Arcaini. Once again, if you are new here. So thanks for hanging out. Philly Sports. Are you worried about the clubhouse vibes? I don't see how JT will be necessarily happy how things went this offseason. That I agree with. Bohm has been tossed around in all sorts of trade talks. Yes. Harper was dissed by Dombrowski. Yes. And I feel like the guys might just be tired of the same result every season. And with Bichette being so close to coming here, there's no way they aren't disappointed. I'll tell you this. I know there's just no possible way the guys aren't disappointed in not getting Bichette. But I believe it might have been somebody asked Thomson yesterday, I think, at the stadium. I think that's who the question was directed to. I think this could be like a chip on the shoulder kind of season. JT's not happy, right? JT's got incentives to play for. JT's not happy how things went down. Everyone in Philadelphia thinks JT stinks now. Alec Bohm tossed around in all sorts of trade talks. Not a bunch of people wanted Bohm back. He's going to be back. Harper was dissed by Dombrowski. Harper wants to go out and hit 300 with 35 home runs and 115 RBIs this year. And, I think the guys are, tired of continuing to come up short. So while I think the reason here to worry about the clubhouse vibes, part of me actually thinks maybe it could help. Maybe it's a situation where it's just sort of like they have a chip on their shoulder type of season. Maybe it's not. Maybe they go out and Alec Bohm starts off and he's slamming helmets and he gets booed and things go really south. But unfortunately, once the season starts, you can't think about what happened in the past. Rob Thomson was asked yesterday about, have you gotten over the Dodgers loss yet in the playoffs? And he said, no. He said, but the second we're down in spring training, I have no choice but to get over it because it's a new season. You can't go into 2026 thinking about 2025, and Bohm can't go in there thinking about all the trade scenarios, and Harper can't go in there thinking about all this. They just all have to go in and play. I'm going back and forth, but I really do think this can be some sort of like a chip on their shoulder situations. Any questions? If we got any more, I did want to hit on this really quick for any of my Zach Bryan listeners in here. I'm not going to lie. I know it's probably the basic answer, but I really do like Appetite. That's a damn good song. Really, 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 really good. I'm trying to pull the album up. I liked Plastic Cigarette. There's a bunch I like. It took about, the first probably 2 listens. Once I got to like the 3rd or 4th listen, I was like, all right, yeah, this album rocks. So appreciate the Zach Bryan question. But yeah, any more questions? If anyone's got anything else, what course? So yeah, what's up, Connor? Yeah, the boys are headed to the golf simulator in a little bit. Big shout out to Rambo Country Club in Mount Laurel. What course we playing tonight? I don't know. We could play Bethpage. We could play a Hilton Head course. I think they took Pebble off right now. I think Pebble Beach is like temporarily off the sims. But we will play a good course tonight, and I'm probably going to kick your ass again, Connor. If there's any more questions, fire them away. If not, one more thing I did want to talk about, because I know he had a good year last year, rookie season. I want to just talk a little bit about Otto Kemp, because he's getting a lot of praise this offseason. Whenever you hear Thomson or Dombrowski talk about the youth movement into the Phillies, it's always Crawford, Painter, Miller, and Kemp. They're very high on Otto Kemp going into next year. And being completely honest, I would be too. The guy was good when he was healthy. So Kemp admitted yesterday that he got multiple procedures done in the offseason. He played a good portion of last season with a knee injury and a shoulder injury. But he said, when he was healthy, he felt at his best. When he was in pain, that's when he was struggling. And one big thing too is, because Weston Wilson got DFA'd, I think it's just more of a sign that they're believing in the Otto Kemp sort of left field, right field thing. Right now, I'm expecting Kemp to be Brandon Marsh's platoon partner. Otto Kemp hit .231 with a .462 slugging percentage and a .786 OPS against lefties last year. That'll do as a platoon guy with Brandon Marsh. But I'm excited because I really do think there is something to Kemp's game. I think it just feels like he made a lot of winning plays last year. Listen, I'm not comparing these two. This is not what I'm doing, so please don't go clip this and run away with it. But I've seen a lot of people talk about VJ Edgecombe this year, and how it feels like, yes, he's a good basketball player and he has good knowledge, but it just seems like he makes winning plays. And I think that's one of the best characteristics to have as an athlete. You can be skilled, but not everybody's a winner, and can make winning plays. It just feels like Otto Kemp is a winning baseball player. I'm excited for him to get more playing time because, one, I think he earned it off of last year. I know, please don't go look at WAR, -0.2 WAR. He had a 709 OPS plus as a rookie. 709 OPS, 709 OPS plus. That would be ridiculous. He would probably be in the Hall of Fame. But all right, I'm gonna get out of here. Thank you guys for hanging out. Maybe we'll do this. I'm gonna tweet out at some point. I definitely just want to get a schedule down. I want to do this on a certain day, just so it gets some weekly stuff into it. But yeah, newest episode of Luke and I on the Phillies. Don't forget to follow me on Twitter at Arcaini Luke. Make sure to subscribe to Pick Swap Media on YouTube. And while you're over on YouTube, hit the subscribe button on Phillies Digest, where myself and Sean Bernard are releasing a video every single day over there. Continue to follow at crossingbroad.com. Under a month till pitchers and catchers. I am in the process of planning my spring training trip. It'll be my first time down there, so I am extremely excited for that. But thank you guys for hanging out tonight on Twitter, and I will see you guys next time. Peace.